It's you. And I just said to him, well, I won't say what I say to him because I do not want to swear, but I told him to do one. I'm a man. I'm tough. I'm tough as boots. I can take anything that's thrown at me. Except when I can't. Except when I can't. My name's David Pickett. I'm also known as Chaplain Dai Pickett, and everybody in the military's called me Dai. I'm currently a parish priest in the Church of England in this great county of Yorkshire. But I have served, currently up to date, 31 years, and now His Majesty's Armed Forces. I spent 23 years as an air operations officer in the Royal Air Force. I left to train as a priest, and then I went back into the Armed Forces, into the Royal Navy, of all things. My father worked in a factory. My mother was a homemaker. I was born and brought up in South Wales, in a town called Merthyr Tydfil. For those of you who might not know Merthyr Tydfil, it's where the Aberfan disaster took place, which is obviously a very sad period of time for the town. I come from a long line of military people. Now, my dad and my mum had me late in life. They were well into their 40s. Then I thought my parents were ancient. I'm a 60-year-old man with a 4-year-old child, so obviously I was wrong. My dad served in the Royal Air Force in the Second World War, as did all his other 4 brothers. I had an uncle who served with the Chindits in Burma. My brother, now who's sadly passed, he served in the Royal Air Force. So you could say it was a natural progression for me to find myself in some form of military uniform. When I stood on that train platform in February 1987, my dad took me to the train and through tears just said to me, son, just get on with it. And he said, I'll give you one piece of advice from my time. Never volunteer for anything. And I've got to say, he was right, actually. But I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't know what to expect. Meeting your corporal for the first time, who probably spoke in 200 decibel voice and frightened the living daylight out of you. And that's what it was for 6 weeks. It was a cultural shock, an absolute cultural shock. But like everything else, you get used to it. And after that 6 weeks of basic training, passing out, probably one of the proudest moments of my life, to have my family there on a parade square with a rifle, in your best blues, lost probably 2 stone at least. It was such a proud moment. And then I realized that this was not only one of the proudest moments of my life, but what I was destined to do was to serve my country. The best bases that I have served on were always the overseas bases. I served in RAF Germany between 1993 and 96. Why was that so important? Well, because not only was I serving in a foreign country doing a really important job, but also at that time I got married. I came home on leave in 94, Christmas time, and I met my wife. We fell in love. I started commuting from RAF Larbrook in Germany to South Wales every weekend until I got to the point where I said, I can't do this anymore, it's killing me. Why is it killing me? Because I used to leave RAF Germany, RAF Larbrook in Germany, at about midday on a Friday. I would ride through all the way till about 10 o'clock at night to South Wales. When I say ride, I had a motorbike. I would stay with my girlfriend until probably about, shall we say, 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday, ride through the night. I would get back to my station at 6 in the morning, quick shower and shave, back into uniform, ready for starting work at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. That was a tough gig every weekend, but I realized she was the one for me. I will say one of the toughest memories was when I was serving in the ops room in Northern Ireland in Aldergrove. I was on night shift I was a senior aircraftsman in an ops room. I was exceptionally good at my job. I was there with the senior NCO, which is a sergeant, and the ops officer as well. And then we had a call through an emergency call that one of our helicopters had crashed at Bestbrook, which was in South Armagh. And unfortunately, we lost all the crew. And of course, from that call, it just went to, and I'm not going to say the word chaos because it wasn't, it was controlled chaos. We had to deal with the loss of a crew. We had to deal with the people in our unit those people on board that aircraft with their friends. We had to deal with family. We had to deal with security and to continue the operation of flying our aircraft in and out of that base. And so to lose people that I'd only spoke to half an hour ago because they came through the ops room to get their briefings, to get their flight information, to go from seeing them, joking with them, laughing with them, to within 30 minutes of them leaving, were dead. It was probably the toughest gig for me as a young man. I was about 24 at the time. And that stayed with me. Because then from there we went to their funerals and we said goodbye to them. And that's happened to me in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've lost probably about 5 close people in that time. It all had to do with becoming a Christian at 4 years of age. Sitting in my home on a Sunday morning in a village called Cefn-Coed-y-Cymru, which is just off Merthyr Tydfil, and hearing voices singing. And I said to my mother, "Mum," because that's what we called our mothers, "Mum, what's that singing?" And she said, "It's the Pentecostal church down the road." I said, "Can I go?" And look, this was the late 1960s, and you could just leave the house at whatever age. And my mum said, "Yes, go." And from entering that Pentecostal church, I encountered God. And I felt the presence of God. And God entered my life in a big way. And through all my teenage years, I was a Christian. I was a Christian in the military. Until that sunny day in 1994, when I got what I would call the big lottery finger of God. He said, "It's you." And I just said to him, well, I won't say what I say to him because I do not want to swear, but I told him to do one because I was happy. I was loving the military, and I said, "God, I love you, but please don't ask me to do anything for you because I'm really happy where I am." And he said, "Okay, David, no problem." Until he came back again sometime later and kept coming back until I said, "Lord, you're obviously calling me. All right, let me explore it." From there, I explored my calling until it got to a point where somebody said to me, "You need to speak to the Bishop of the Armed Forces," who at the time was David Connor. Wonderful, wonderful man. And he was the Anglican chaplain to the Royal Air Force and to the Armed Forces. I called him up on the phone, which was great. I actually called a bishop on the phone, and he said, "Hello, David, how can I help you?" I told him. He said, "Yes, of course you can come and see me. That'd be a great thing to do. Where are you?" I said, "I'm out at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus." "Don't come to me." He said, "I'll come to you." Of course, why wouldn't he? And he came out to see me. I was supposed to have an hour with him. We had 2 hours together. He already had at least one son who was serving in the Royal Air Force at the time. I believe was either a pilot or a navigator. I had a great conversation with him, which finished with, "David, I think you are called to become a priest in the Church of England." From there, I was waiting to go to what's called a Bishop's Advisory Panel. It's a selection conference. But just before that, the good old military, in what they always do, they said, "David, you're off to Afghanistan." But I said, "Oh, but, no buts, you're going." I went to Afghanistan for 4 months, waiting for this letter. This letter eventually came about a month before I was due to return. Fortunately, praise the Lord, it said, "You are going to Bishop's Advisory Panel a week after you come back," which for me was perfect. I am an overthinker. I am an overplanner. I think and I plan and I think and I plan and I keep going to my detriment. I didn't have time to do that because what I was doing in Afghanistan was at least a minimum 18-hour day every day. I didn't have time to think about a Bishop's Advisory Panel. The first time I thought about it was the day after I came back. And so I quickly cobbled together what I needed to do for this Bishop's Advisory Panel, went to the panel under no pressure, and then, lo and behold, they said yes. The most difficult thing I ever had to do was to put in my paperwork, which is called a PVR, Premature Voluntary Release. I'd already served 22 years, but I was on for life. And the day I put my papers in was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. I had the blessing of my wife, who, when we got married, said, David, I'm just going to follow you around the Royal Air Force. I'll have your babies. I'll take care of your home. You do what you need to do, and I will support you. Which, for me, I've never had love or support like that ever from anybody. And she still gives me that support today. And so I put the paperwork in, and the blessing of it was I was serving at Royal Air Force Halton, which is in Buckinghamshire, but I lived in North London, so I could drive home. 40-minute drive. I cried all the way home. A man in his early 40s, I cried all the way home. But then I prepared. I've obviously been called to do what I'm doing in the Royal Navy. I've been called to do what I do in civilian life. And I have to marry those two up. I am first and foremost a parish priest. I am looking after people within my civilian parish, but I'm also looking after people in my military parish. I am still a parish priest, even in the military. But I find it very hard, having been an air operations officer, non-chaplain, to now being a chaplain. Why do I find that so difficult? Because I can't give orders. Not that I want to give orders, but sometimes I can see things that are blatantly obvious that need doing and changing, and I can't tell anybody what to do. So I have to go from somebody who says, blogs, get that done and get it done tomorrow, to somebody who says, do you think you should do that? I call it the Sergeant Wilson of Dad's Army approach to military. Would you mind awfully, I say. Would you mind awfully? But that has ramifications for my civilian parish. When I took up my first incumbency, what they call it, in my Church of St. Oswald in Guiseley in West Yorkshire, there were many things I could see needed to be done. But I didn't have the power to go to somebody and say, Smith, get that done and get it done now. Or I want it done in 24 hours. I again would have to say to people, would you mind awfully coming with me and helping me do this? That was different language, completely. So I had to learn a new language becoming a civilian, because I still see myself as a military person. And so it's tempering my language, tempering my, should we say, Navi language, because obviously I have to be careful of how I speak to people now. But it's still empowering people. When I was in a position of authority, because I hold no authority in the military, when I was in a position of authority, it wasn't just about telling people what to do. It was about having a leadership style for me, which was consultative. I would speak to my troops below me and say, how do you think we should do this? I live two lives. I live two lives. And I'm an 80-hour-a-week priest who marries people, baptizes people, buries people, sits with the dying, comforts people when they are going through the most difficult periods of their lives, to next putting on a military uniform and dealing with people who are an awful lot younger but have their own issues. They're usually around mental capacity, sexuality, not knowing where they are in life, where they want to go in life, to being on the front line with people who could die, who will come to me and say, Bish, that's what they call us, Bish, what's going to happen to me when I die? What's going to happen to my family when I die? To having those tough conversations. I live in a world where things are confidential. So if you were coming to me today to say, I've got an issue, but I don't want you to tell anybody, I wouldn't tell anybody. I don't do that. What's between me and a Royal Navy or an Army or a Royal Air Force person who sits in front of me and says, my world is falling apart, but I don't want anybody to know about it, then I will help them. That happens both in the parish and in the military. I'm not a 9-to-5 priest. I'm a 24-hour-a-day priest. The next day I might get a call to say, we need you to do kin forming. Kin forming is telling somebody's kin that they've either been in a serious accident or they've died. And I did one of those recently. I went with an officer and we went and told somebody, and unfortunately their loved one had passed in an accident. I've got the hat of a husband. I've got the hat of a dad. I've got hats of communities that I'm part of. I give, but there are times when I need that love and support. I ask people to pray for me. I have people who I've never asked who will call me and say, how are you doing? How are you doing, Bish? How are you doing, Di? How are you doing, Father David or Reverend David? How are you? How are you keeping? I need that. Sometimes I'll go home and my wife will see it in my face. She'll say, you all right? And I'll just say, it's been a tough day. Do you want to talk about it? I'm sorry, I can't talk about it. And what will she do? Something that people should do more often. Something that men certainly should do more often. Give each other a hug. A consensual hug. To say, do you want a hug? Will that make you feel better? Yes, please. When I first became my parish priest, where I am now, 6 months into becoming a priest, I had to go and support a family who lost a child. And I went to see them, I sat with them, and we didn't talk, because you don't go in and start quoting scripture and verse. You just sit with them and hold their hand and speak if they want you to speak. I sat with them for 2 hours and I left. Within half an hour, I was sitting in front of primary school children telling exciting Bible stories and acting the fool and doing the things that make them excited about faith. And sometimes you have to just take one hat off and put another hat on. When a military person was lost to IED, bullet, whatever, often they would get back in from patrol after losing somebody. Often they would be put into a room, and then maybe the company sergeant major would then say to them, boys, and it was predominantly boys, you've got to deal with this now, because we are back out, maybe in a few hours' time, tomorrow. You need to be fully focused. You need to deal with this now, and then we'll cry for when we get back to our unit, back in Blighty. And that's what military people have to do. When we encounter difficult things, we have to coin a phrase, suck it up, get on with it, and then we'll cry at a different time. Because the operation, the military operation, is paramount. I constantly think about the military. I'm a man of 60 years of age. I look back on my life. I've got more behind me than I've got in front of me. And I look at my life. I don't look at it as if I'm on my last legs and thinking, what have I achieved? I just look back fondly on my time in the military. A number of years ago, probably about a year and a half ago, a friend of mine, who I haven't spoken for many, many, many years, came to me in the middle of the night. I had to get out of bed because the phone rang and I saw his name and I thought, that's unusual. Why would he be calling me at that time? I went downstairs to the kitchen, having put my dressing gown on, switched the kettle on, sat down, and first thing he said to me, Di, I've got stage 4 cancer. And you were the first person I thought of. And he and I went through many good times together, some tough times together. We hadn't spoken for a long time. But he thought that I was the first person he needed to reach out to. And I sat with him in the middle of the night for an hour or two, crying, chatting, putting the world to rights, going over old times. And then when the conversation finished, the next day he sent me a text to say, thanks for that, really helped. I'll keep in touch, which he has done. I'm fortunate in my position that I come in contact with many men and women And those men and women have children. And those children get to a certain age where they start looking to do something in life. And some of them say, I fancy joining the military. Being a parish priest, those people say, I know someone who's in the military. So I've been blessed that people have come to me and said, can you tell me about the military? What do you think joining up is the right thing to do? Do you think it's for me? And I'll say to them, I don't know your character, but I can tell you what I've done. And I can tell you what the military's like now because I'm still serving. What I will say to them is there is nothing I have done which has made me more proud than to put on the Queen/King's uniform, to know that I am part of a big brother and sisterhood that is taking care of this country, that is protecting this country. Not only am I doing that and gaining, I will say prestige, I will say a sense of esprit de corps, doing something that 99% of people in this country will never do. I'm very well paid for it. I will see the world, and I will gain life skills that many other people won't. The military gives so much to you. All you have to do is sign on a dotted line for a short or long period of time. There is probably, you will not find a job in Civvy Street which will give you the breadth and depth of experience and life that you will as a military person. Family for me is everything. Family is who you are. Good family are the ones who will say, I love you, but you're wrong. They are the ones you will listen to. My family in the military would tell me I'm brilliant, tell me I'm an absolute rotter. I won't use the language that they would use, but they would still love me. They would support me. I need David Pickett, Dai Pickett, needs to be told when he's wrong. I gain more from being told that I'm wrong than when I'm right. But my blood family, my wife, my children, they have been my support because they do not know what it means to be a military person. So they are more genuine than anybody I've ever met. They take the rubbish that I bring through the door when I've had a tough day, the grumpy dad, the tough dad, the cold dad, the dad who can't speak of his feelings because I am a person who doesn't open up very easily. I spend my life telling people to open up and I can't even do it myself. And I'm not going to get emotional because I could do, but I thank God for them. But also, I thank and I think about those I'm yet to meet. Those people that in the years to come I will encounter and who are going to share the rest of life's journey with me, however long that is, whether it be today, tomorrow, in 20 years' time. I think about those who are going to enter my life and I thank God for them all. I have to say that being a parish priest and being a chaplain is possibly one of the loneliest things I've ever done. Because there are many times that I can't open up. An example of that is with a ship's captain. A ship's captain is in charge of a lot of people. She or he has nobody to speak to. That's one of the most important people on that ship, apart from the captain, is the chaplain. Why? Because the captain, who's in overall command and who has all those lives in his or her hands, has nobody to speak to. Who can they speak to? The chaplain. Who does the chaplain speak to? But often nobody. We don't have anybody we can speak to. Yes, we can speak to other chaplains, but often you're on your own. And it's the same in the parish. I've got nobody to speak to in the parish. And sometimes you just have to deal with and have the strength of character to walk home after what can be sometimes a harrowing experience and go in to see your family and close the door and then try to deal with that and become a dad, become a husband again. And this is why many, many parish priests, men of God, women of God, turn to the bottle. turn to some form of solace. And I've seen many priests struggle in life and turn to the bottle because they can't cope with the things they've done and seen. I'm a man. I'm tough. I'm tough as boots. I can take anything that's thrown at me. Except when I can't. Except when I can't. Too many men take their own lives, and I've lost friends to suicide. Military men especially. Young men find it difficult to open up because all of our lives we're told that we're meant to be strong. We're not meant to cry. We're not meant to speak about our feelings. We're there to support because we're men. We're told we're the strongest of the two sexes. Physically, probably we are. Mentally, we're not. When we do and see things that many others haven't done or seen, we're supposed to put it in a box and forget about it, but we can't. We need to speak. We need to take care of each other. We need to reach out. There are agencies out there we can reach out to. We can reach out to your parish priest. And even if they haven't been in the military, they can help you. They can signpost you. If you're in the military, you need to speak to somebody. You need to deal with your demons. And we all have them. And not just men in the military. Many of us have our demons and we don't reach out enough. We don't open up and say, I have a problem. I am hurting. I need help. We have got to be there. And when we say on social media, I'm there for you, brother, be there for your brother. Don't ever say to somebody, how are you, unless you are willing to sit down and listen to how they are. Don't do it in passing. Don't do it flippantly. How are you? Are you all right? No, I'm not. Oh, I've got to get somewhere. If you're going to ask somebody how they are, sit and be with them. They may tell you a story which will curl your toes, but you may be able to say to them, I'm here for you, brother. Hold my hand. I've done it. I need it.